Hello and welcome to another video on Steph Says. I feel like I've not actually addressed the fact that that's the name I've decided to go with my channel for now. So yeah, thank you again for everybody that's watched the last video and maybe even decided to take some time to watch the video before. Really appreciate it, and as ever, if you can like the videos, if you want to subscribe. I'm still going to be trying to post a video a week. It's a bit later this week because I've been really busy with work. It's been really hectic. I talked before about doing quite a lot of training and shadowing, trying to pick up different skills, and that has been one of those weeks, and it was my first shift as an assistant producer for a particular podcast. So yeah, it was a lot to take in. I didn't have the energy to put together a wee video, but I'm here now, and what I want to talk about, and I don't want the title of the video to put anybody off, so talking about buying less but investing more. And I mean investing more in yourself, and I'm not about to sit here and give you financial advice. I'm in absolutely no position to do that. This is more about being mindful, being more thoughtful about the things that you purchase and don't purchase, so that you're in a way making more of your money, making the most of your money, but actually thinking about what this thing that I'm thinking about buying, what is it going to give me? Is it going to give me something in the long term? Is it just a short-term thing? And yeah, just thinking a little bit about that, because I've been quite focused on that this year in particular. I mean, we're only in February, so we're only, a couple months in. But yeah, I've just really been thinking about that, and I guess to some extent last year as well. So the first thing, I suppose, that really made me think about this more at the start of this year, I'll go back to the fact that I was doing dry January and I felt like I had more energy, I felt more motivated to do things, and I just had this real urge, it was quite exciting actually, to consume information. So basically I wanted to learn all the time. I was watching lots of different documentaries, I was watching, various different news programs. I mean, I have to keep engaged with the news because I'm a journalist and that's my job. But rather than, there were maybe a lot of days, and it's important that you do this as well, when you finish a day, when you're in a newsroom, that you're coming away from it and you're like, I'm, switching my brain off. I'm not engaging with the news, because, I mean, let's face it, the news is not particularly cheery and happy. Certainly at the moment, or at the best of times, and it's sort of felt like that for a while. But since the start of the year, I felt more engaged in, maybe wanting to learn more and seek out information, whether that was through, other podcasts, and this could be about health. I got really interested in looking into how alcohol affects your body, because I was doing dry January, and what happens when you stop drinking alcohol, and if you drink alcohol over a certain period of time and a certain amount of alcohol, what that does to your body. So I just felt very motivated, and there was a fire in my belly to learn lots of different things. And I think part of that also came from, and I'm sure many of you will relate to this, and it's funny because in my 20s and in my teens, there'd be insecurities about how I looked, whether it was my body, my face, whatever. But I found that since turning 30, my insecurities, now don't get me wrong, I still have days where I don't feel great about how I look. But the thing that gets me most, I feel like I have an intelligence complex, and I guess that's tied up, or can be tied up, in imposter syndrome, and a lot of people will feel this, where you think, I'm not smart enough to do this, or I'm just not capable, And particularly in these moments, this year, the start of this year, where I'm doing lots of different training, trying to learn lots of different things, that voice I've really had to fight with. So it said, you know, this is new, this is hard, I don't think you're up to the task. And I've really had to say, no, like, it is just new and I'm out of my comfort zone, but that's how you learn new things. And we're just going to push through that. You build on those skills, and then you acquire that skill, and then and that's there. Obviously you can always get better, and by keeping on doing. But like I say, since I got into my 30s, I've had this real thing of thinking I'm not good enough, in terms of I'm not smart enough, or I maybe don't think in the same ways as other people, and I'm kind of going to get found out in that, like, are you actually just a bit of an idiot? So that's a worry. I'm sure it's not just me that has that. And, you know, if you're somebody that feels that way, please let me know. And it's a horrible feeling, but we have to try to take control of those thoughts and fight against them. And I've found real power in fighting against it. To say, well, you know, maybe I am going to get things wrong. Maybe I'm not going to understand things the first time they're explained, even the second time, but you keep going. And I think it's also, you're trying to compare yourself with how quickly you maybe learned something, even when you were a teenager or younger. You do pick things up quicker than when you're in your 30s, but that's okay. And we're also in a world of instant gratification, where if we're not immediately good at something, then, you know, we kind of lose patience right away. But things do take time, they take practice. So I felt very motivated to, I guess, in that way, fight against that intelligence complex, I suppose, by backing it up with, well, no, because I know this about this subject and I've consumed all of this information, so I'm not a stupid person. So it's about getting that balance, but also just the real enjoyment I find in learning. So the different ways that I have, and that you can invest in yourself if you want to. And this was actually something that I think I actually started doing before the end of last year, and it was downloading Duolingo. So it's the app that I'm sure you're very aware of, that you can learn a language, and you can use the app for free, or you can pay for it, where you've kind of got unlimited lives and things. And I very quickly sort of signed up to pay for it. Initially I was going to do that, free trial and then cancel. But I think it was maybe £69 for the year. And initially when I'd forgot to cancel, I was like, oh, I've been charged this. I was like, oh, I didn't really mean to do that. But now, I mean, I'm doing it every day. And I see that as, it's not just me playing a game on my phone. It's me learning something. So the language that I am trying to learn is Mandarin, and I was inspired to pick that up again because I actually lived in China for a year in May 2015 to June 2016, and I was picking up Mandarin. I was by no means fluent or what have you, but I have always found languages quite interesting, and I can pick things up relatively quickly, but it's all relative to, just love the word relative. It's all it's kind of proportionate to how often you are practicing that language, how often are you speaking it. So when I was in China, I had to speak it a lot to order food and give taxi directions and all that kind of stuff. And when I was going to markets and buying the weekly shop or whatever, I had to pick up the language, particularly because I was in a city where there weren't a huge amount of people that spoke English. And don't get me wrong, there was a lot of sometimes charades and using apps on your phone to translate where, you kind of fell short in how much you knew of the language. But the other thing that inspired me to pick it up again, because I appreciate that was 2016, I came back. And, fast forward to towards the end of 2024, I was reading a book, and it was actually a translation of a Korean book, but the girl that was speaking in it, she was part Chinese, and she said she used Chinese words and there was Chinese symbols, and I felt this sort of like a connection because I recognised some of what she was saying, and I picked up and I thought, do you know what, that's a shame. And I think a lot of people in the UK will feel this way, like, I don't have another language, or I'm not really picking one up. Obviously you go to school, and it was German that I learned, and again that's another one I'm thinking about picking up again because I did actually quite like it, and I went to Berlin a few years ago, remembered more than I thought I did. But anyway, other story. So I decided to start learning Mandarin, and I know people criticise some of the apps and say that you're not necessarily getting practical language that you're going to use in every day. I would say sometimes I feel that way. I'm like, when am I going to use this? Like, you know, can I have 3 grapefruits? Oh no, this is not my grapefruit. But it's all building blocks, and it's just quite nice spending a few minutes a day where I can do that. I'm learning something and I'm ticking it off. Plus, as I think I've said this before, I respond really well to things feeling like a game, and that certainly does. And I have a friend quest with my boyfriend, so we kind of like nudge each other when we've not done it in the day. So like, you know, make sure you do your Chinese lesson, and you can spend as little as like 2 minutes doing one little lesson, or you can sit on it, you know, for ages. So that was one thing. So that's £69 for a year for me to spend as much or as little time as I want learning a language. And again, there's this idea of, well, why am I going to learn Mandarin when the end result might not be me? Well, I'm going to say probably, most definitely will not be me being able to speak fluent Mandarin. Like, because why start something with the only intention in your head of thinking, I'm only going to do this if it's going to be perfect, if I'm going to be able to, you know, complete it 100%. Like, just start and see where it gets you. So I have no idea when, and you know, if there is a point where I get to, you know, the end of the lessons in Duolingo with Mandarin, it's like, right, you've completed everything. And obviously that's not me speaking to a fluent or native Mandarin speaker. I think that's where kind of the real practice comes in, but who knows? So that was one way I have invested in myself, I suppose. And I really don't begrudge that. That's £69, because across a year, I mean, think how many other things you might spend 69 quid on without even thinking. I mean, you're definitely going to be spending, I don't know, double, triple, quadruple that on a coffee a week. Would you? I don't know. I'm not going to rely on any sort of maths. Maybe I should have worked that out. The other thing, again, I suppose with like consuming knowledge, I'm just getting comfy in the old chair, is books. So I mentioned before about the book I read that was a translation from, I think it was a Korean book, and it was called Small Bodies of Water. I might actually link it in the description box, and I'll link all the books that I talk about so you can see. I love reading, always have, and English was always my favourite subject. There's just obviously, and a lot of people will feel this way, life gets in the way where you maybe feel like you don't have time to sit and read a book. You don't need to read a whole book and you know, in one reading session. You don't even need to read a whole chapter. I just decided to make time, right, I've got 10 minutes now. I'm going to sit and read some of my book that I've got. Love going into bookshops, heavily influenced by my boyfriend who has a whole wall of books, and that's been really nice, is that he's encouraged me to read more, not by saying anything, but I'm just seeing him sitting and, you know, reading his book. I'm like, I'm going to read my book. So even if you can sit down and read a few pages, you almost always end up, I'm going to make time and read a little bit more, especially if you're in your downtime, you know, on the weekend. We find time always to, you know, maybe sit and watch an episode of a series or a movie or half a movie, or, you know, scroll on your phone. And I'm not trying to be preachy and say, you know, I've stopped watching television now. I never scroll on my phone. I'm just reading. Yeah, that's all I'm doing. No, of course, I still scroll on my phone. I still watch series and movies. But I'm just trying to readjust the balance a little bit. So this was the first book. Did I start reading this before? No, I think this was the first book that I read in 2025. I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, but this is a Korean book and it's called Welcome to the Hyunam-dong Bookshop. So it's a translation and it is described, one reviewer said, a balm for the soul and a glorious love letter to books and reading. And it's about a woman who opens up a bookshop and her journey of like trying to make it, I suppose, a successful business, but then also enjoying it. And it's a complete shift from her previous life and what she did. So she talks about that. This is possibly one of the most comforting books I've ever read. It just feels, there's such a lovely pace to it. There's no major, you know, plot twists or dramatic goings on or happenings. It's just really peaceful, quite a tonic, this one. So I would recommend, and actually just one that encourages you to want to read more, because it sort of explains and gets into the joy of reading and the joy of books, and talking about how it's like escaping into a different world. Like, you know, I've got this pile of books here, and any one of these that I pick up and read, I'm entering a different realm, and I think that's really amazing that books have the power to do that. So this was the first book that I read this year and would highly recommend. And I've noticed I've been picking up, and actually the books I have in my pile, quite a few of them are translations from either Korea or Japan, and that's quite exciting that they're just, I guess, like dipping in. You get the opportunity to dip into different cultures. The next book I read is The 5 People You Meet in Heaven, and this was a result of a book blind date. So my best friend gave me this. Now, she ordered a book blind date, put in topics or themes that she thought I would enjoy. So I think it was like motivational, heartfelt, emotional, and then based on those preferences, you get a book. So when I opened this and unwrapped it, she didn't know what book I was going to get, and it's I think you can get this from, you can get it from like Waterstones and various other bookshops that they have this offer. So they were doing it for Valentine's Day as well. If you know the kind of books that your partner likes, then, as I say, putting in those themes, and then it'll generate a book, and it's just quite a nice surprise. Because sometimes, you know, we do judge books by their cover, and we might not necessarily go with them, or they're maybe not as well known, or we're just not aware of them, but other people are. And I think that's a really good way to expose yourself to books that you might not have chosen. So this is, a really lovely book. And I mean, it does start, this is not really a spoiler, it does start with somebody dying, and they meet, funnily enough, 5 different people in heaven, and find out how they're connected, or, you know, were connected in their life. And it's comforting, thought-provoking. Well, I'm just like literally reading the review back, but no, it is comforting. It's by Mitch Alborn. So author of the international bestseller Tuesdays with Morrie. Now, I've not read that book, but because I read this one and I really enjoyed it, I might give that one a go. Now, let me just see when this one came out, because also that's the other thing. So this came out in 2003. So more than 20 years ago. More than 20 years ago. It's just quite nice to do that, because obviously when you go in the bookshops, you're seeing like the new ones towards the front, and then it's kind of classics, and I wonder the ones that are maybe in between might get lost somewhere. So that's the second book I read this year. Funnily enough, I actually didn't cry. I'm a big crier, but didn't cry with this one. But it's good. Change of pace. Voices of the Dead is a crime thriller drama, and set in Edinburgh in 1853, which I just really like. That's kind of what appealed to me. I'm a big fan of like gory, morbid history, but then also I love horror movies and supernatural. So this was a really enjoyable read. It's also like quite chunky, but quite easy to get through, because it was just it's split into a lot of different chapters. So it's easy to sort of, I'm just going to read a wee chapter. Oh, I'll just read one more. And I really enjoyed this one. Didn't realise it was part of a series, a Raven and Fisher mystery. And it's Ambrose, Parry. And I think it's actually written by 2 people. So, and I got a signed copy. Didn't realise, but I mean, I didn't go to a book signing. It was just in there. But yeah, it's a pen name for 2 authors. Chris Brookmeyer, and consultant anaesthetist of 20 years experience, and Dr. Marissa Hatesman. I've heard of Chris Brookmeyer for sure. Anyway, I would recommend this book, and I might actually pick up other ones from this series. And then the next book that I've read this year is a classic, George Orwell, 1984, which I had never read. I read Animal Farm last year or the year before. Most people will have done these books in school, like read them, studied them, written essays, but yeah, Animal Farm and 1984 were not on my curriculum. So just finished 1984. Really good, really interesting, really scary, because a lot of it, as many people will say or agree, is quite relevant for today. And when did this come out? I think it was, 1949. This came out, but so much of it, you're like, okay, that could be 2025. And I'm sure there's been other, points in history where it could have really applied. And so I'm gonna try and splice classics with new books, just to get that mixed range. So this is the last one I read. And then I've just started this one, and it is What You Are Looking For is in the Library. And again, this is a translation. So this is a Japanese book by Michiko Aoyama. And so far, it's really nice. Just quite a comforting read. But I'm right at the beginning, so I can't say too much about it, but feels cozy and lovely. So I'm going to read that, and then after that we're going to go back to another classic, because I mean, I have an English degree and I've never read The Bell Jar, Sylvia Plath. Plus I consider myself a feminist. And by the way, that is not a dirty word. A feminist just means we want everybody to be equal. Everybody should be a feminist. So I'm going to read that one next. And I'm just really excited about reading these books, experiencing these books. And I actually, the first time I thought about buying this was a few weeks ago, and I didn't buy it. I was like, I think it was $9.99. I was like, no, I'm not going to buy it. And then the other day when I was in the shop, I was like, I'm going to buy this. This is not a willy-nilly purchase. When you read a book, that's going to, well, certainly if it's a good book, that's going to stay with you. Certainly a good book for the rest of your life. It's not a top from a fast fashion brand that, you're going to get that buzz of shopping, and, how long is it going to last? It's to me, I feel like buying books are little investments. I have thought, because I want to read so much, that I'm going to get a library card and go to my local library so I can take out a few books, and at the same time, it means I'm spending less money on books and accumulating less stuff, but also then supporting my local library. So that's the book journey. And I suppose in general, when I'm talking about investing in yourself, I think your health is a huge thing that you should be prioritizing. Like, for example, like getting counseling for your mental health, a gym membership, if that's, you know, how you keep yourself physically healthy. I've certainly had multiple gym memberships over the years. At the moment, I don't have one. I think because I am freelance, I'm trying to see if I can build up a, you know, kind of an exercise program myself, you know, using online materials and going out for runs and what have you. But I definitely think, you know, gym membership for some people, you know, that's a non-negotiable. It's not a luxury. And I would agree, because it is like, it's investing in yourself, it's looking after yourself. And, you know, like I said about accumulating less stuff, I think if we can buy fewer things and spend money on making memories. So, I mean, I used to, when I was, you know, maybe in my early 20s and even probably into my later 20s, I remember like every month I would spend 80 quid, 100 quid in like H&M, Topshop, wherever, throwback Topshop. And, you know, it would be on clothes and what have you. I don't think I have, you know, still have any, or certainly many of those clothes now. Whereas, I mean, I'm wearing the same clothes all the time now, and it's certainly evidenced in my social media, and I kind of just don't care. The thing I spend my money on most of the time is going out for brunch, lunch, dinner, maybe going out for drinks, going out for coffee. I would rather save my money for the big things that I love. So like going traveling, or I'm saving up for a deposit for a flat or a house. That's what I want to kind of focus my money on. Or if there was something else that I really wanted to spend money on, like, you know, say if I wanted to get really fancy schmancy equipment or a camera for making this YouTube channel, that would again be an investment, you know, in myself, and a longer term investment. So, and I just like to say again, I'm not preaching and saying I've really welcomed and assumed a minimalist lifestyle. I haven't at all. I'm just trying to be more mindful of the amount of stuff that we can so easily accumulate, and I've certainly been guilty of it, very, very guilty of it in the past. And I just kind of want to be a bit more careful, a bit more thoughtful around the things that I'm buying and what I'm spending my money on. Because, I mean, let's face it, like, not nobody's rich. There are plenty of people that are rich, but we're all sort of feeling the cost of living crisis, and our money's not going as far. So I think it's even more important to be careful with the money that we do have. It's precious. And I suppose the other thing, like literal actual investing money, I have just started doing. I'm not going to give you any sort of advice on that. I really have that very basic understanding of what it means to invest your money, and I should have done it a long time ago, but we're just, you know, we've got to start somewhere. I think that's just like the theme of my life at the moment. And I've started investing a little bit of money, see where it goes. I guess like the name of the game is leave it for at least 5 years. It's going to go up, it's going to go down, but hopefully in the long run it goes up, and we'll see what happens. But just trying different ways and things of enjoying my money, making it work harder for me so I can do the things that I love. And that's not necessarily that I have a goal in mind of I want to be a millionaire or what have you. I would be quite happy with if I have enough money to go on a couple of holidays a year. And I mean that, like, you know, I might go to a city break, might get some sunshine, or even, you know, go somewhere in the UK, go somewhere in Scotland. Like, that's what I mean by holidays, or spending money on really nice memories. And by being more mindful about the things that I buy, I can then invest more money into the actual investment side of things as well to make that happen. So yeah, I think that's where I'm gonna leave this, but I suppose maybe like a challenge for you is thinking about different ways that you could invest in yourself. So what's something that you always wanted to do, always wanted to see? Like, how can you maybe change things in your life to make that a reality? Whether it is being more mindful about what you're buying and thinking about your long-term goals and instead of maybe the more short-term ones, and just really enjoying and nurturing yourself with, you know, whether it is knowledge, whether it is self-care, and like, I'm really going to take care of, you know, I'm going to get a massage every month, I'm going to really look after myself, I'm going to give myself a pedicure, I'm going to have a fitness goal in mind, and I'm really going to be focused on that, and maybe going to allot a certain amount of money to making that happen and giving myself the best chance of making it a reality. So everything, you know, these goals are going to look different for different people, but these are just my thoughts. And as I say, I will link the books that I have mentioned, and please do, if you're on Duolingo, add me as a pal and encourage me to keep going with my lessons. So I'm going to end there, and thank you so much. If you have watched this video, please do subscribe, and I will see you again soon.